that shift in the spectrum, you can measure how fast the star is going around and with what period. And you can use that information to measure something about the mass and orbit of the planet orbiting the star. In actuality, you measure something called the we call m sine I, the mass times the orbital inclination of the planet. But it's a reasonable approximation to the mass of the planet. So here's another case of a technique that we can use to discover planets. In this case, we can measure the mass of the planet in its orbit. We don't get any information about the radius of the planet.
这个方法太重要了啊，所以我稍微多花一点时间，因为在等一下要讲 Kepler 之前，最成功的我刚刚讲就是这种方法。我们没办法直接侦测行星的话，我们就看它对恒星的干扰。那恒星我们就可以有光线之后可以测量。一种刚刚前面讲的，我们就测它的位置，在天空中位置的变化。第二种呢是它前后的运动，在我们视线方向前后的运动。那在物理上叫做卢普的效应，没有关系。意思就是说啊，今天如果我们平常日常生活中，假如说我们测说有没有毒，有没有含毒，对不对？有没有含塑化剂？怎么知道的？你在实验室里面做光谱，因为特定的东西啊，它就有特定的谱线，像这样特定的谱线。如果有一个车子，它上面载的蛋白质，假设，那它就有蛋白质的谱线。可这个车啊，离我们远去，或者是向着我们开过来，它那个谱线啊，所在的波长会变的啊，这个叫卢普的效应。那在恒星当然不是蛋白质，它是氢气或者其他的成分。所以我们看到一颗恒星的光谱，实验室里面量氢应该都在这些位置。可是因为这个恒星啊，因为旁边有行星跟它绕，我们就会看到它的谱线啊有左右这样子摆动的现象，我们就知道旁边有绕着它的东西。可是各位可以想象一下，这是恒星，如果行星跟它是这样子绕，从五个方向看这样子绕的话，它是这样子动，这样子动就没有前后的运动，你就测不到刚才讲的那个运动，对不对？这样子绕的话呢，你就看到最多的运动，最多。所以这种方法的好处就是你可以测到很小的运动，缺点是什么？你不知道这个轨道面是多少，你量到的不是真正的它的那个轨道的运动，对，它叫 m 上 I。对不起，因为这是术语 ，m 就是质量，上 I 就是各位在可学的课堂上学的三角函数，它是一个投影的角度，成了一个正弦啊 m 上 I 的这个角度。然后这种方法还有一个很大的缺点，因为你是量着两者的运动，所以你还要知道这个恒星的质量，要知道得很清楚，你才能够推测行星的质量。各位可以想象一下，这个方法有一个很大的问题，即使我是两颗恒星是互绕，也就是这不是行星哦，这是很大质量，可是因为我倾斜角度太斜了，造成它的前后的扰动也会比较小，会好像是一个行星造成的影响，对吧？所以有这样子一个问题，叫做 what ambiguity。
So the radial velocity technique has been extremely successful. Until very recently, almost all of the extrasolar planets that were known had been discovered by the radial velocity technique, and really had been discovered by just a small number of teams, because there are only so many combinations of telescopes and spectrometers that can do these special techniques. But as the years have gone by, this technique has gotten better and better. Let me try to explain this plot. This is showing the year of discovery against the m sine I. The thing about the radial velocity technique is it has a sensitivity limit. It can only measure masses of things that are above some limit. If you have a particular telescope and a particular spectrograph, you can only measure with a certain precision, meaning you can only detect planets that are more massive than some limit. But as the years have gone by, that limit has gotten better. So in 1994, or 1989 was the first case of an extrasolar planet. At the time, people weren't even sure this was an extrasolar planet. But you could measure something that had a mass of 10 Jupiter masses, 10 times the mass of Jupiter. And then several years later, in 1995, when the first 51 Pegasus, the first close-in, what we call hot Jupiter, was discovered, it has a mass a little bit less than Jupiter. And then you see, suddenly there's a flood of planets discovered. Every year, several new extrasolar planets were discovered. And the thing that's interesting is each year, the sensitivity limit improves. And you'll notice that this is a logarithmic scale. Every few years, the sensitivity improves by a factor of 10. And in fact, we're very close now. I haven't shown you, we're already off the chart here. In 2012, we're approaching the mass of the Earth. We're getting close to having combinations of telescopes and instruments that can measure very small mass planets. And that's great, because that's the kind of planet we're interested in finding, planets like our own. So, as I said, this method has gotten better and better over the years, and it's been very, very successful.
这个 radial velocity，radio 就是半径的方向，所以测量半径方向这种运用这种技巧，全世界只有几个研究局能做，因为它需要很稳定、很精确的光谱仪，你要把那个谱线量得很准，对吧？你可以完全想象你的温度变化一点点，仪器不太好，或者是你本身就会有变化，所以你要量到越小的行星造成的扰动的话，你要能够量速度量得很准。各位知道吗？现在这种光谱你可以量到我现在走路的速度，1秒钟1公尺。遥远的天体啊，我可以量到这样遥远的。那这张图是这样子，历年来发现，所以各位真的是系外行星的世代啊！你看，从1989年第一颗开始，当时还怀疑它是不是系外行星，到飞马座的51号，这很有名的，前面几个系外行星。然后每一年发现的系外行星用这种方法越来越多，而且它的下限就是质量下限，最低质量越来越棒，越来越棒。现在已经在这个图外面了，已经可以侦测到类似地球这样子的行星所造成的扰动。
So the next technique I'm going to talk about is planetary transits. This is very important because this is really what the rest of the discussion is going to be about, is this technique. Let me show you this again. This is the light curve. This is a measure of the amount of light. Suppose this is a star very much like our own sun at a distance. If you use a telescope and collect all the light from that star, and you watch, this is a planet orbiting that star. As it crosses the face of the star, it blocks some fraction of the light. So this is a measure of the light from the star as a function of time, and as the planet crosses the face of the star, the light begins to drop, and then it continues across, not changing very much. And then, so we call this ingress, call this egress, as the planet emerges from the face of the star. There's something interesting here. This thing is curved here because stars are not uniformly bright across their face. They're darker on the edge, we call that limb darkening. They're brighter near the center. So again, as the planet crosses the face of the star, you'll see the planet blocks some amount of light. The amount of light blocked by the planet depends upon how big the planet is compared to the star. If you have a bigger planet, it blocks more light. If you have a smaller star with the same size planet, more light will be blocked. So we can use this technique to find planets. If we monitor the light from a bunch of stars and saw that periodically, every orbital period, the light from the star was getting fainter, we can infer that there's either a planet or another star orbiting the one that we're observing. We can also, like as I said, estimate the radius of that object that's transiting the star. But without some other technique, and we'll get to that, either radial velocities or something else, we can only measure the radius of this planet. We can't measure its mass using the transit technique. And again, we also need to know something about the radius and mass of the star to infer the physical properties of the planet.
And I will spend some time with that. 我会讲比较久，因为这张图是最重要的一张图了。等一下的演讲就是全部在讲这种技术。这种技术最后有一个字叫 transit，transit 就是凌日，就是走在太阳表面叫凌日。下个月6月就有金星凌日嘛，对不对？我们就会看得到，因为我们站在这边看到 Venus 金星啊，它会走在太阳表面。那你可以想象，如果我们是一个很远很远的观测点啊，我们看到别的恒星，如果轨道面对的话，它的行星就会正好遮到它的核心表面。这个方法就叫 transit 或 transiting phenomenon 的现象。那我们看到是什么？我们就看到纵轴是亮度，横轴就是时间。我们看到它的光变曲线会怎么样？会掉下去，一段时间离开了那个恒星表面以后呢，又恢复了。所以刚才那个后面教授特别提到一个，你如果能够到太空里面去量得很精准的话，你会发现连下面这一个弧度啊，都会量得到。各位想一想，为什么会有这个弧度？它有解释哦，我这边故意不解释，你可以再问，或者你再想一想，为什么当这个黑点通过那个恒星表面的时候，下面会有一个弯曲的这个情形。I left them as a question. Why is it curved up? You already explained that. I left them. 但这种方法的限制，你可以想象，就是说你量不到质量，对不对？因为它只是一个半径折过去的这个时间的长度，你可以推测它的大小，另外就是你当然要知道这个恒星本身有多大，然后那个恒星有多少质量，就是它的行星离它多远，所以造成这样子的遮蔽。还有很多相关的配套的观测，才能够完整的得到这个系的各种性质。
So I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about transits because, as I said, this is the main topic of the rest of the lecture. I'm going to talk about what we call transit observables, the things that we can observe in a transit, what we can take away from a transit light curve. I like to use this diagram. This shows 4 different light curves of HD 209458b. Again, astronomers give names, astronomical objects funny names. But this is the name of the star, and the B after it means the planet orbiting that star. These are 4 different dates. This was around the time shortly after the discovery of the first transiting extrasolar planet, which is this object, 209458b. These data were collected with the Hubble Space Telescope. And I'm going to ask you a question that you can think about. So this is one light curve on one date. This is 28 April 2000. A few days later, there's another light curve taken, and these are just offsets so that you can see them, and another one taken. There were 4 of them taken so that you could add up and make a complete light curve out of this. The question I'm going to ask you, that you can think about, so this was observed with the Hubble Space Telescope. Why are there gaps in the data? Why is it that there's not a complete continuous light curve? So this is measuring the light from the star. Why could the Hubble Space Telescope not observe continuously? So I'll leave that question aside. The things that you can measure, you want to observe from here is the time of the transit. When does it occur? When do you see the light go down? How long does it take for the planet to cross the face of the star? So that's the duration of the transit. How deep is the transit? In this case, it's about 1% deep, meaning the planet blocks 1% of the light. It has 1% the area of the star. And what is the shape of the transit? Is it very curved or is it very flat bottom?
好，这张图很有意思。第一，它这边是在4天哈勃太空望远镜量的光变曲线。所以刚刚后面老师提说，他先丢一个问题给你们：哈勃太空望远镜量为什么中间会有 gaps？ 为什么会有空缺的地方啊？会量不到的地方？为什么？ 那我们就看，正好是2年以前的今天，对，4月28号，所以你会看到一个没有眼星的、没有凌日时候的情形，然后光线掉下来，然后又恢复，4天，在不同的4天量到一样的情形。那这样的光变曲线，第一个要知道它发生这个眼星中间的时候的时间的长短，到底降了多少光线？他刚刚告诉我们，这只降了1%的光线，也就是说，这1%是什么意思？就是说，假如我问你，昨天的太阳跟今天的太阳，光线差多少，强度差多少？对吧？你们要用仪器去量嘛？可能有云，可能有你的仪器有点不稳定，可能太阳本身有亮度的变化，对吧？有那个百分比，这个下降下来呢，只有1%，有1%的这样子的光线下降，等下还会讲更精确。然后另外就是 shape of transit 这一个眼星啊的这个现象呢，它的这个光变曲线啊有什么不同的形状？这些形状也会给我们很多资讯啊。然后 by the way， 我讲一下这个名字啊，这个 HD 什么209458，这是很有名的一颗星，也是在系外行星很有名。找到这是恒星的名字。在恒星找到了一个行星，那个行星就叫 B， 小写的 B。找到那个恒星旁边的第2颗行星，那就是小写的 C。等下各位会看到，有很多恒星的周围，它跟我们太阳系一样，可以有8个行星，所以很热闹。
So did anyone know the answer to the question?
Anyone going to answer now? Why not? Yeah. 哦，对不起，不是2年以前，12年以前。那个有没有人要回答那个问题的？为什么会有间隙 ？Please， 对。
因为有时候我们进去正对的那种星，有时候是没有办法正对，就是绕地球背面。
He said because sometimes the telescope is on the back of the Earth, it's blocked.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. So the Hubble Space Telescope orbits the Earth, and for this particular star, HG 209458b, the Earth gets in the way. If the star happened to be above the orbital plane of the Hubble Space Telescope, you could view continuously, but that wasn't the case for this star. So that's an important thing, because if you want to observe transiting extrasolar planets, and you don't want to have the Earth get in the way, you have to design your mission differently. I'm going to go over this one more time because this is very important. So this diagram shows a planet orbiting a star, and you see the light face is the face of the planet that's getting light from the star. The dark face is the other side. As the planet goes around, this is the light curve. So this is the light curve. As the planet gets in the way, transits, blocks the star. But there's another thing. There's an occultation. The planet goes around and passes on the backside of the star. So there, you can potentially see the light from the planet blocked by the star. So what's being blocked there is light that's reflected from the planet, starlight that's reflected from the planet, or thermal emission. The glow of the planet itself can be blocked by the star. So there's a couple of different things. There's the transit and the occultation.
好，各位现在听到的是大概连我们研究生都不会的东西了啊，已经是最新的东西了。你可以量一个光线的变化，天文学家就是量光线啊，量到多精准呢？当这是一个行星绕着恒星的时候，反光的情形，其实就跟月亮啊、金星啊是一样的嘛啊。在前方的时候是黑的，但其他地方的时候呢，我们就看到部分的反光以及整个反光面。可是当它做这个凌日啊，就是往前走的时候，我们就看到前面掉下来，对吧？前面下面这一段，我们刚刚看到。可是，在整个轨道面，我们还看到整个光变曲线，实际上是很奇怪的，因为到了背后去的话，那个叫 occultation， 就是它行星本身被恒星给遮住了。在这个的时候，各位想象，在行星走到这边的时候， 我们看到的光线是整个恒星的光线加上一个反光，对吧？加起来的。可是当它走到背后去的时候呢，又掉下去。所以当你如果把一个光变曲线量到很准的时候，你可以在这整个 phase， 就在整个这个变化的这个周期里面，你可以看到整个这样完整的这样子的变化。所以现在在太空就可以做到这样子的事情。So I like this stuff.
So, just like the radio velocity surveys have been very successful, there have been a number of ground-based surveys for transiting extrasolar planets that have been enormously successful as well. There's something called HATNet, which is the Hungarian-made automated telescope network. That survey, so here's an example. These little telescopes here are all small telescopes looking at lots of stars, waiting for the light of that star to be blocked by a planet. Here's something called the Super WASP survey, which is based in the UK, and the MERF project. All of these are networks of small telescopes on the ground, distributed at various sites around the world, looking for planets. And these were all inspired by the discovery of HD 209458b, that there would be planets, you could measure these 1% dips in light of typical stars and be able to discover planets. Although these telescopes might look big, they're actually quite small. You might notice that these are really just telephoto lenses. You can actually discover a planet with a telescope that you can build or buy. You have to be very careful with the data reduction in order to make sure that you can tell that you have a real planet and not a star. Ground-based surveys, as I said, have been very, very successful. They found nearly 100 planets. They can find planets that are as small as Neptune, even smaller than Neptune, super Earth-sized planets, if they're orbiting small stars. However, ground-based surveys only find planets that have short orbital periods. There are very few planets that have orbital periods longer than a few days, 4, 5, 6 days, that are found with these techniques. And that's because, just like with the HST, the Earth gets in the way. And that's, in this case, it's not because, it's because the observatory is on the Earth. There's, sometimes it's daytime, sometimes it's nighttime. You can't observe continuously. You can't observe during the daytime.
现在这张投影片讲的是在地球上，就地面上的望远镜。在系外行星这方面呢，也有很多的也很成功。这边讲的是一个，比如说一个在Hungary 匈牙利，在英国，在法国的一些望远镜。这望远镜都很小啊，各位，这个右上方那个啊，那就是我们的照相机的长镜头而已啊，那就是用很小的望远镜就可以做到这样的事情。可是为了要搜寻系外行星的话，因为我们不知道哪一颗星会有，重点是要看要看很多恒星，才有机会看到第一个它有行星，第二个它的面要正好在我们的视野的面嘛，才有可能造成系外行星，对不对？但是在地面上呢，因为受限制大气的扰动，它先天就给了我们一些测量的精准度不足呢，所以呢，它能够看到的呢，大概就是像海王星 Neptune 这么大，就是大的行星，它才能够遮住，才造成足够的光度下降。最多看到了 Super Earth。Super Earth 就是我们现在媒体上讲的超级地球，就是它比地球大了5倍、10倍这样子的行星，看不到地球的大小。为什么？因为大气的扰动造成了先天的限制。然后最后这个 ，However, they mostly find planets with short period or orbital period。但是不管怎么样，这样子的方法找出来的行星都是短周期的。有没有人知道为什么？为什么这样子找到的都是短周期的行星？短周期是什么？你来请。因为有人在别的房间听到你的答案。
长周期的行星可能几百年才有资本上的机会。
Okay. I asked them why they primarily short period, orbit period. And he said for longer period, they orbit only once in 100 years or so. That's his answer.
Yeah, so you wouldn't see multiple trends.
对，所以这样就看不到多次的那个典型的现象，对不对 ？Yeah, that's the right answer. Very good.
So we have techniques, ground-based surveys for transiting planets, radio velocity surveys, can find lots of planets. But if we want to find very small planets with periods that are longer than a few days, the Earth's period around the Sun is a year. We want to find planets that are as small as the Earth, that have orbital periods as long as a year. So we couldn't do it with the Hubble Space Telescope because the Earth gets in the way. We can't do it from the ground because we're not sensitive to small planets and we're not sensitive to long period planets. So we have to do something else. And that's where Kepler comes in. Here's a picture of the Kepler launch on just about 3 years ago, a little more than 3 years ago, and there's this nice haiku from a colleague of mine who's a member of the Kepler science team, David Latham. In March, Kepler rose, seeking shadows of planets are any like Earth. This is a Delta II rocket, one of the last of the Delta IIs, showing that Kepler was launched on. And this slide really doesn't do justice to the launch, so I will show you what the launch actually looked like. Sorry about the sound, which is the one thing. I did have sound, yeah. This was a launch from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida in the United States. These images are taken with telephoto lenses, camera from the ground.
Passing 34 seconds. Mach 1. Vehicle's now going.
It's already going at the speed of sound after just that many seconds.
The motor chamber pressure is beginning to trail off as we're passing 45 seconds. Engine chamber pressure, good steady state value. Symmetrical burn on the groundlet solids. Coming up 55 seconds. Standing by for burnout. Burning out of the solids. Wait for separation. You see separation? And we have ignition of the air-lit solid motors. Air-lit solid motors building in chamber pressure.
So for a couple of days after that launch, the Kepler science team was very, very nervous. Because if several things have to happen for the mission to be a success. The spacecraft had to exit the Earth-Moon system. It had to get away from the Earth and the Moon. And then, this is a picture, an artist's depiction of the Kepler spacecraft. There's something on the front here. There's a dust cover, just like the cover on your camera. This was released by small explosions in order to open the aperture of the camera. If the dust cover didn't come off, the mission would be a complete failure. And I wouldn't be speaking here if the dust cover did not come off. So you can rest assured that that didn't happen. I don't actually know if you need to fill anything in. It's not up to you. I'm not. You want to? Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about the spacecraft, and then I'm going to talk about the orbit of Kepler, so that you know how the